The question of why there's been this loss of hope and faith in science and technology is a complicated one. I certainly think when you put scientists were never more in charge than they were at Los Alamos, and people sort of have some questions about how well that worked out. And then the Apollo program fizzled out in the 70s, which was in some sense the successor to the Manhattan Project. There is a sense in which the optimism around science in the 17th and 18th century, that it was almost limitless in what could be done, gradually gave way to this idea that it was a trap, or it didn't work, or that there were just sort of random things that would go wrong, that would happen. And I think sort of one intellectual history thing I would stress is the early modernity did not attribute a large role of chance to science. And so in the 17th and 18th century, people thought it was very deterministic. And you could figure out, if you look at Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, you were going to control the weather, and all these sort of random things would be, and chance would be sort of relegated to the margins. There would be no accidents, and you wouldn't die because nothing would happen. You could sort of get rid of all accidents in the world. And I think in the 19th and 20th century, sort of the role of chance became bigger and bigger. Friedrich Engels could still say that dialectical materialism promised never-ending progress, but then in a footnote add that the second law of thermodynamics implied that eventually you'd have the heat death of this world and everybody would die, but people could ignore that because it was still far in the future. And there was certainly a way in which actuarial science sort of suggested that you eventually hit this probabilistic wall. And so we're now in a world that's not Marxist or Hegelian, but it's more Epicurean, where the dominant mode is that there are atoms and they randomly move through a void, and no matter what you do, you end up, your projects gradually come to naught. Yeah. You will hit this probabilistic wall, and that's why the dominant mode in our society is not this optimistic view about the future, but it's stoic, it's eat, drink, be merry, because everything's going to sort of fall apart eventually anyway, and that's not a scientific attitude.